The bridge of the Alliance ship Peace Seeker was quiet except for the soft beeping of sensors and gentle hum of life support systems. Commander Gray stood at the main viewport, his four eyes blinking in sequence as he watched the stars. His scales shimmered with a mix of blue and green, reflecting his calm state of mind. "Unknown ship detected at bearing 347, announced First Officer Reed, her antenna twitching with excitement. "It's not matching any known Alliance designs." Commander Gray turned smoothly, his tail helping him balance as he moved to the central command station. "Show me," he ordered, and the main screen lit up with the image that would change the course of Alliance history forever. The ship that appeared was unlike anything they had ever seen. Where Alliance vessels were smooth and elegant, this craft was angular and bristling with what could only be weapons. Its dark hull seemed to absorb nearby starlight, and strange markings decorated its side in white paint. "Magnify those markings," Gray commanded. The screen zoomed in, revealing letters in an unknown script. HMS HENDRC. "Sir," Reed's voice quivered slightly. "Energy readings they're off the scale. That ship is carrying enough power to light up a small moon." Gray felt his scales shift to a cautious yellow. Standard first contact protocols were clear, but something about this vessel made his primary heart skip a beat. Still, they were representatives of the Stellar Alliance. They had a duty to perform. "Open a communication channel. Standard greeting package," he ordered. The crew worked quickly, sending out the carefully crafted message that had helped the Alliance make peaceful contact with dozens of species. The response came faster than expected. The strange ship transmitted back in perfect Alliance standard language. "Alliance vessel, this is Captain Smith of the human warship HMS Thunderchild. We acknowledge your greeting and request permission to approach for diplomatic contact." Human. The word was new to Gray, but something about how they called their vessel a warship made him nervous. Still, proper procedure had to be followed. "Permission granted, Thunderchild. Please maintain current speed and—" Gray's words were cut short by a blaring alarm. Multiple ships dropping out of faster than light. Reed shouted, her antenna now rigid with fear. 6, no, 8 vessels. Pirates. They're charging weapons. The infamous Red Claw pirates have been raiding this sector for months. Gray's scales paled to white as he realized their peaceful diplomatic mission had just turned into a potential massacre. The pirate fleet was too much for their lightly armed science vessel, and the unknown human ship would surely flee rather than face such odds. Evasive maneuvers, Gray ordered, but he knew it was futile. Their engines were built for efficiency, not combat speed. The first pirate shots struck their shields, making the whole ship shudder. "Shields at 60%, called out the defense officer. "We can't take many more hits like that." Gray prepared to give the order to surrender, hoping to at least save his crew's lives, when the human ship did something completely unexpected. Instead of running, it accelerated, placing itself between the Peace Seeker and the pirate fleet. "Alliance vessel." Captain Smith's voice came through clearly, somehow calm despite the chaos. "Stay behind us. We'll handle this." The crew of the Peace Seeker watched in amazement as the Thunderchild's weapons came to life. Beams of energy lashed out with precision they had never witnessed before, cutting through the pirates' shields like they weren't even there. Missiles streaked across space, each finding their target with devastating effect. "Impossible," whispered Reed, voicing what everyone was thinking. "Their targeting systems must be. And those weapons." The pirates, clearly as shocked as the Alliance crew, tried to regroup. 3 ships turned to flee, while the others attempted to concentrate their fire on the human vessel. The Thunderchild's hull flared with impacts but showed no sign of damage. "Their hull," the science officer reported in disbelief. "It's absorbing the energy weapons and redistributing the force. I've never seen anything like it." In less than 5 minutes, it was over. The pirate fleet was reduced to floating debris or fleeing in terror, and the human warship hadn't suffered so much as a scratch. The bridge of the Peace Seeker was silent, every crew member trying to process what they had just witnessed. Alliance vessel, Captain Smith's voice returned, still professional and calm as if nothing unusual had happened. Are you all right? We stand ready to assist with any repairs you might need. The repair crews moved quickly between the two ships, their magnetic boots clicking against the hull as they worked. Commander Gray watched through the observation window as human engineers in strange suits helped fix the damage to the Peace Seeker's outer plating. The humans worked without safety tethers, seemingly unconcerned about the vast emptiness of space around them. "They're insane," muttered First Officer Reed, her antenna twitching nervously. "Look at them. They're using handheld plasma cutters in open space like they're gardening tools." "Effective, though," Gray replied, his scales shifting to an impressed shade of blue-green as a human engineer casually caught a floating piece of debris one-handed while operating complex repair equipment with the other. They'd done more in 2 hours than our teams would have managed in 2 days. The humans had insisted on helping with repairs, and their efficiency was frightening. They carried tools that the Alliance considered too dangerous for routine use, yet they handled them with casual expertise. Even more surprising was their ability to work in conditions that should have been lethal. "Sir," Reed said, checking her data pad, "you need to see these readings from their ship. The radiation levels in their engine room. It's higher than our safety protocols would ever allow, but they just walk around in there with basic shielding." A communication alert chimed, and Captain Smith's voice came through the speakers. "Commander Gray, if you're available, I'd like to invite you aboard the Thunderchild for a brief tour. There are some matters we should discuss." Gray felt his secondary heart flutter with nervous excitement. The human ship was both fascinating and terrifying, but diplomatic protocol demanded he accept. "I would be honored, Captain." The docking tube between the ships was surprisingly sturdy, though Gray noticed the humans had adjusted their artificial gravity to match Alliance standards. The first thing that struck him upon entering the Thunderchild was the temperature. It was cold enough to make his scales tighten uncomfortably. "My apologies for the chill," Captain Smith said, meeting them at the airlock. "We've raised the temperature in some sections for your comfort, but our crew operates best in cooler conditions." The human captain was tall, with skin that seemed impossibly soft and vulnerable compared to Alliance species' protective scales or exoskeletons. As they walked through the ship, Gray couldn't help but notice the differences. Where Alliance vessels focused on comfort and efficiency, every inch of the Thunderchild seemed built for survival and combat. There were backup systems for backup systems, armor plating inside the hull, and emergency equipment stored every few meters. "This is our auxiliary control center," Smith explained, showing them a room filled with screens and control stations. "We can run the entire ship from here if the main bridge is compromised." "Compromised?" Reed asked, her antenna straight with alarm. "Standard design for all our warships," Smith said casually. "After the Battle of Mars, redundancy became our watchword. We prefer to be prepared for any situation." Gray noticed how every crew member they passed was armed, even inside their own ship. When he asked about it, Smith's expression turned serious. "We learned our lessons the hard way, Commander. Humanity fought 3 interplanetary wars before we achieved unity. Now we maintain peace through constant readiness." They reached the ship's mess hall, where human crew members were eating their meals. Gray watched in amazement as they consumed food that would be toxic to most Alliance species, drinking hot liquids that would scald most beings. "Captain," Gray said carefully, "I must ask, your combat capabilities earlier, was that typical of human warships?" Smith smiled slightly. "The Thunderchild is actually one of our lighter patrol vessels. Would you like to see our tactical data from the pirate encounter? It might help explain our combat doctrine." As they reviewed the battle footage, Gray felt his scales shifting between colors of awe and concern. The humans hadn't just fought the pirates, they had predicted their maneuvers, anticipated their tactics, and countered them with precise, overwhelming force. It was like watching an adult deal with children playing at war. "Your people," Gray said slowly, "you're not just warriors, are you? You're survivors. We come from a world that tried to kill us every day." Smith replied quietly, "Space isn't much different. We've just learned to be ready for anything." Looking at the battle display, Gray understood why the humans built their ships like fortresses and trained their crews so rigorously. They weren't paranoid. They were prepared. And suddenly, he was very glad they had chosen to be allies rather than enemies. The emergency repair bay of the Peace Seeker buzzed with activity as human engineers worked alongside Alliance technicians. The humans had brought strange tools and materials that made the Alliance crew nervous, but nobody could deny their effectiveness. Through the observation window, Commander Gray watched as a human engineer named Tom worked with bare hands in conditions that would have required full protective gear for Alliance workers. "They're replacing our shield emitters with some kind of hybrid system," First Officer Reed reported, her antenna moving in confused patterns. "The humans say it will be 3 times stronger than our original configuration." A loud clang echoed through the hull, followed by human laughter. The Alliance crew jumped at the noise, but the humans barely seemed to notice. They worked with an urgency that made the Alliance technicians uncomfortable, yet their results were undeniable. "Look at this," the Alliance chief engineer called out, holding up a datapad. "Their repair manual shows they test these shield systems by actually shooting at them. They don't just simulate attacks. They fire real weapons at their own ships." Captain Smith had joined them in the observation room, sipping something the humans called coffee, a stimulant drink that would have sent most Alliance species into cardiac arrest. "Standard procedure," he explained. "We find that real-world testing is the only way to be certain of our defenses." The Alliance crew watched in fascination as Tom began teaching their engineers about what he called redundancy rings, backup systems that could take over if the main systems failed. The humans insisted on having at least 3 ways to accomplish any critical function. "But why?" Reed asked, genuinely puzzled. "The statistical likelihood of all primary systems failing is Murphy's Law," Tom interrupted with a grin. "Anything that can go wrong will go wrong, and usually at the worst possible moment. We learned that lesson the hard way back on Earth." The humans shared stories as they worked, tales of their homeworld that made the Alliance crew's scales pale. They spoke of surviving in temperatures that would freeze or boil most species, of living through natural disasters that would level cities, and of adapting to environments that should have been lethal. "You mean you still have active volcanoes on your populated continents?" Gray asked, his scales showing disbelief. "Some of our biggest cities are built right on fault lines," Smith replied casually. "We learned to build stronger, to adapt, to survive. Space wasn't much different, just new challenges to overcome." As the day went on, the humans began installing what they called point defense systems, automated turrets that could shoot down incoming missiles or small craft. When Reed expressed concern about the power requirements, Tom just laughed. "Don't worry about power. We're also upgrading your reactor cooling system. You'll have more energy than you know what to do with." The humans' approach to engineering was shocking to the Alliance crew. Where Alliance designs focused on elegance and efficiency, humans seemed obsessed with durability and raw power. They overbuilt everything, added backup systems that seemed redundant, and always assumed something would go wrong. "I don't understand," the Alliance chief engineer finally admitted, watching the humans install armor plating inside the ship's corridors. "Why do you assume everything will fail?" "Because we've seen it fail," Smith explained. "Every safety feature, every backup system, every redundancy. They exist because somewhere, sometime, someone died without them. We don't believe in learning those lessons twice." As the day's work neared completion, Gray received an urgent message from Alliance Command. The report made his scales shift to a worried gray. Captain Smith noticed the change immediately. "Bad news." Long-range sensors have detected a massive fleet gathering in the Nexus sector, Gray said quietly. The largest pirate force ever recorded in Alliance space. They're gathering for something big. The human captain's expression changed subtly, not afraid, but intensely focused. How many ships? At least 50 vessels, possibly more. The Alliance Council is meeting to discuss evacuation of the nearby colonies. Smith smiled, but it wasn't a happy expression. It reminded Gray of Earth predators he had seen in human historical files. Or, the human captain said, we could teach these pirates why attacking peaceful colonies is a bad idea. Looking at the newly installed weapons and defense systems on his ship, Gray realized that the humans weren't just helping with repairs. They had been preparing for war all along. And somehow, that was both terrifying and reassuring. The Alliance Council chamber buzzed with nervous energy as the holographic displays showed the growing pirate fleet. 57 ships now gathered in the Nexus sector, with more arriving every hour. Commander Gray stood before the council, his scales shifting between concerned purple and determined blue as he made his report. The human vessel Thunderchild has offered their assistance in defending our colonies, Gray explained, watching the council members' reactions. Their combat capabilities are far beyond what we initially assumed. You suggest we trust these humans? Councillor Bridges' upper arms waved in dismissal while his lower arms gripped his seat tightly. A species we didn't even know existed until 3 days ago. The chamber's main screen lit up with footage from the earlier pirate encounter. The council watched in silence as the Thunderchild single-handedly destroyed multiple enemy ships. Even in replay, the precision and power of human combat technology was shocking. That's just one of their patrol ships, Gray emphasized. Captain Smith has already contacted their fleet command. 3 more human warships are en route to assist. The council chamber erupted in overlapping voices. Some demanded immediate rejection of human help, fearing their violent capabilities. Others argued that facing the pirates alone would be suicide. The debate raged until Captain Smith himself entered the chamber, his presence bringing instant silence. The human captain looked small compared to the various alien council members, but something in his bearing commanded attention. He walked to the center of the chamber and activated a new holographic display. Honorable Council, Smith began, his voice steady. I understand your concerns, but right now, pirates are targeting your people. We can help stop them. The display showed a detailed battle plan. The council members leaned forward, their various appendages and sensory organs focused on the tactical overlay. Smith's strategy seemed impossible, deliberately leaving gaps in the defense, positioning ships in ways that appeared to invite attack. This is madness, Councillor Bridge protested. You want us to position our ships as bait. Not bait, Smith corrected. We're creating a trap. Your ships have been upgraded with human defense technology. They can now withstand direct assault long enough for our warships to counterattack. The human captain gestured, and the display showed a simulation of the battle plan. Alliance ships would appear vulnerable, drawing in the pirates. Then, human warships would emerge from hiding places in nearby asteroid fields and gas clouds, catching the enemy in a crossfire. You want to hide warships in radiation clouds? Another counselor asked, her eye stalks trembling. The interference would blind our sensors. We wouldn't be able to coordinate. Smith smiled slightly. Human ships don't rely solely on energy sensors. We've learned to fight blind when necessary. Trust me, we'll see them long before they see us. Commander Gray watched the council's reactions. He had seen human capabilities firsthand, had watched them work in conditions Alliance species considered impossible. But could the council overcome their fear of these strange, powerful beings? There's something else you should know, Smith added, his expression growing serious. We've analyzed the pirate fleet's movement patterns. They're not just gathering for a raid. This is an invasion force. New data filled the display, showing projected attack vectors and potential casualties. Without intervention, the pirates would overwhelm colony after colony. Millions of Alliance citizens would be at their mercy. How can you be so sure of their intentions? Counselor Bridge demanded. Because humans have fought wars before, Smith replied quietly. We know the patterns. We've seen this type of buildup, and we know how to stop it. The council chamber fell silent again. Gray felt his scales ripple with anticipation as the council members exchanged glances. Finally, the head counselor rose to speak. Captain Smith, your species frightens us, she admitted. You treat lethal environments as inconveniences. You build ships designed to survive impossible damage. You plan battles with a precision that suggests too much experience with warfare. Smith waited patiently as she continued. But right now, those very traits might be exactly what we need. The Council accepts your assistance with one condition. After this threat is eliminated, we want to discuss a more permanent alliance with humanity. The human captain's smile returned, and Gray noticed several council members flinch slightly at the predatory expression. Counselors, Smith said, let's deal with the pirates first. Then we can talk about the future. I have a feeling our species have a lot to learn from each other. The training room aboard the Peace Seeker had never seen anything like this before. Alliance crew members watched in amazement as human combat instructors demonstrated battle tactics that seemed to go against every safety protocol they had ever learned. You want us to deliberately vent atmosphere from damaged sections? Reed asked, her antenna rigid with shock. But that would destroy equipment and... Equipment can be replaced, Tom explained as he helped adjust her pressure suit. The vacuum will help put out fires and can even throw off enemy boarding parties. Trust me, losing some computers is better than losing your ship. 3 more human warships had arrived. The Dauntless, the Iron Duke, and the Resistance. Each brought their own crews of engineers and combat specialists who now worked tirelessly to prepare the Alliance fleet for war. Commander Gray stood on his bridge, watching the tactical display as human officers ran combat drills with his crew. They practiced scenarios that seemed impossible, fighting with damaged sensors, operating with partial power, continuing to battle even after taking hits that should have destroyed their ships. Again, the human instructor ordered after another failed simulation. Your ship just lost main power and life support is failing. What do you do? Surrender, suggested one of the younger crew members. The human shook her head. You switch to backup power, seal your pressure suits, and keep fighting. Remember, as long as your weapons work, you're still in the battle. The humans had brought their own battle simulators, programs that seemed impossibly complex and frighteningly realistic. They practiced ship-to-ship combat in virtual space, teaching Alliance crews maneuvers that made their scales tingle with fear. You can't just charge straight at enemy ships, protested the Alliance tactical officer during one session. Sometimes the best defense is a strong offense, Captain Smith replied calmly. The pirates expect you to retreat under fire. They won't be ready for an aggressive response. In the ship's engineering section, human technicians were teaching Alliance crews how to bypass safety systems in emergencies. They showed them how to reroute power through secondary systems, how to keep weapons online even with critical damage, and how to make emergency repairs under fire. This is insane, the chief engineer muttered, watching a human demonstrate how to seal hull breaches using emergency foam that expanded in vacuum. We're breaking every safety regulation in the manual. That's why they're called emergencies, Tom replied with a grin. Rules are great until they get you killed. The Peace Seeker's medical bay had been transformed as well. Human doctors taught Alliance medics what they called battlefield medicine, techniques for treating injuries in combat conditions that seemed brutally primitive but undeniably effective. Sometimes you have to hurt them a little to help them a lot, the human doctor explained while demonstrating emergency trauma care. Better a rough patch job now than a perfect funeral later. As the day of battle approached, Gray noticed something changing in his crew. Their movements became more confident, their responses to simulated emergencies more decisive. The humans' aggressive competence was rubbing off on them. Your people learn quickly, Captain Smith observed during a strategy meeting. They're starting to think like survivors. Is that what humans are? Gray asked. Survivors. We're whatever we need to be, Smith replied. Warriors when we must fight, builders when we must create, survivors when survival is all that's left. That's what we're teaching your people. Adaptability. A sudden alert interrupted their conversation. Long-range sensors showed the pirate fleet was on the move, nearly 70 ships strong now. They would reach the first Alliance colony in less than 12 hours. Earlier than we expected, Smith noted, but he didn't seem concerned. Good. The longer we waited, the more time they had to prepare. Gray felt his scales shift to battle-ready red as he watched his crew move to their stations. They no longer showed fear at the thought of combat. Instead, they checked their systems with practiced efficiency, just as the humans had taught them. Captain Smith, Gray said, turning to the human officer, "Thank you. Win or lose tomorrow, you've shown us a strength we didn't know we had." Smith's reply was interrupted by new sensor contacts appearing. More human ships had arrived, bringing their total to 8 warships. The pirates were about to learn why humans had survived everything their harsh world had thrown at them. "Commander Gray," Smith said with that predatory smile, "tomorrow we're going to teach those pirates a lesson about picking the wrong enemies. Your people are ready. Trust me, they're going to surprise even themselves." The pirate fleet emerged from faster-than-light travel exactly where the humans predicted they would. 73 ships strong, they moved in an attack formation that had terrorized the Alliance for years. But this time, things would be different. Commander Gray stood on his bridge, watching the enemy fleet approach. The Peace Seeker waited with 4 other Alliance vessels, apparently alone and vulnerable. Behind them lay the colony they were supposedly protecting, its defense systems powered down as if caught unprepared. "Pirates are launching long-range scans," Reed reported, her antenna steady now despite the tension. "They're seeing exactly what we want them to see." The pirate fleet accelerated, no doubt excited by what appeared to be easy prey. They had no way of knowing about the human warships hiding in the radiation clouds of a nearby gas giant, their advanced sensors tracking every move. "All hands, battle stations," Gray ordered. His crew moved with practiced efficiency, just as they had done in countless drills. "Remember your training. We are not prey anymore." The pirates came in fast, their first wave of ships launching missiles. The Alliance vessels held their position, waiting until the last possible moment. Gray felt his scales tingle as he watched the incoming fire. "Now," he commanded. The Peace Seeker's new point defense systems came alive, swatting incoming missiles from space with terrifying accuracy. The upgraded shields absorbed the few hits that got through, flaring with energy, but holding strong. "Second wave approaching," Reed announced. "They're launching boarding craft." Gray smiled, showing teeth in an expression he'd learned from the humans. "Initiate trap protocol." The seemingly defenseless colony suddenly powered up, revealing weapon emplacements that hadn't existed a week ago. Human engineering teams had worked day and night to install them, disguising them as civilian structures. "Captain Smith," Gray called over the secure channel. "The bait has been taken." The response came instantly. "All human ships, execute attack pattern Delta." 8 human warships burst from their hiding places, their engines burning hot as they cut through space like arrows. The Thunderchild led the charge, its weapons already firing with devastating precision. The pirate fleet's neat formation dissolved into chaos. They had expected to find weak prey, but instead found themselves caught between hammer and anvil, the newly strengthened Alliance ships in front, and humanity's finest warships behind. "Enemy ships attempting to regroup," Reed reported. "They're trying to form a defensive sphere." "Not today," Gray responded. "All Alliance ships, implement Human Tactical Pattern 3. His ships accelerated forward, just as they had practiced. Where once they would have fled from combat, now they charged straight into it. The pirates, expecting retreat, were caught completely off guard. The space around the colony lit up with weapons fire. Human ships moved with impossible agility, their advanced targeting systems letting them fire accurately even while performing evasive maneuvers. Alliance vessels followed their lead, implementing all the tricks and tactics they had learned. "Sir," Reed called out. The Iron Duke just rammed an enemy vessel. Gray watched as the human ship deliberately collided with a pirate cruiser, its reinforced hull tearing through the enemy's shields and armor. The Iron Duke emerged from the other side, damaged but still fighting, while the pirate ship split apart. 15 enemy ships destroyed. Reed updated. 23 disabled. The rest are. They're running. Gray finished for her, watching as the remaining pirate vessels frantically tried to escape. But the humans had planned for this too. "All ships, activate gravity net," Captain Smith's voice came through clear and calm. The human engineers had modified the Alliance ship's gravity generators, turning them into weapons. Space itself seemed to twist as the pirates found themselves unable to jump to faster-than-light speed. What followed wasn't really a battle anymore. It was a cleanup operation. The remaining pirate ships, trapped and outgunned, began surrendering one by one. The few who tried to fight to the end were quickly disabled by precise human weapons fire. "Victory confirmed," Reed announced, her antenna waving with joy. All enemy ships either destroyed, disabled, or captured. Casualties minimal. No civilian damage to the colony. Gray felt his scales shift through colors of pride, relief, and amazement. The battle had lasted less than 30 minutes. The greatest pirate fleet ever assembled had been utterly defeated by 8 human ships and 5 Alliance vessels. "Commander Gray," Captain Smith's voice carried a note of satisfaction. "Your crew performed admirably. I think the pirates just learned an important lesson about underestimating their opponents." A month after the Great Battle, the Peace Seekers' observation deck was crowded with both Alliance and human officers. Through the reinforced windows, they watched construction ships installing the new Joint Defense Station. The massive structure would serve as both a military base and a cultural exchange center between humanity and the Alliance. Commander Gray stood next to Captain Smith, their differences in appearance no longer seeming strange to either of them. Gray's scales showed the calm blue of contentment as he observed the activity outside. The Council's vote was unanimous. Gray said, turning to his human friend, "Full membership for humanity in the Stellar Alliance, though I suspect some of them voted yes simply because they were afraid to vote no." Smith laughed, a sound that no longer made Alliance crew members jump in surprise. "Fear isn't the best foundation for friendship, but it's not the worst place to start. They'll learn to trust us eventually." The news had spread quickly across Alliance space. The infamous pirate fleet, terror of the outer colonies, had been crushed in a single battle. But more importantly, the stories of how it happened had spread even faster. Tales of human warships appearing from impossible hiding places, of Alliance vessels fighting with newfound courage, of 2 species working together to achieve what neither could have done alone. 3 more pirate groups have already surrendered, Reed reported, approaching with a datapad. Her antenna showed pride as she continued. They heard about what happened and decided they didn't want to face human warships. The others are running so far into uncharted space, long-range sensors can't track them. Through another window, they could see the Thunderchild receiving its new markings. The ship now bore both human military insignia and the symbols of the Stellar Alliance. 5 other human warships in orbit displayed the same dual allegiance. "The defense training program starts next week," Smith said, checking his own reports. "We're getting requests from Alliance worlds across 17 sectors. Everyone wants to learn human combat techniques." Gray noticed a group of young Alliance officers gathering around Tom, who was explaining something with his usual enthusiasm. The human engineer had become something of a celebrity after the battle, his emergency repair techniques having saved 3 Alliance ships from destruction. "It's not just military knowledge they want to learn," Gray observed. "Your people's approach to survival, your way of thinking. It's changing how we see the universe. We spent so long trying to avoid danger that we never learned to face it. A flash of light caught their attention as construction ships tested the defense station's new shield system, a hybrid of human and Alliance technology that was stronger than either design alone. "We're learning from you too," Smith admitted. "Your diplomatic protocols, your peaceful exploration methods, your unity as a society. Humanity has always been good at surviving, but you're teaching us how to live." The station's communication array activated, sending out its first test signal. The message was broadcast in both Alliance Standard Language and Human English. "Joint Defense Station Hope, now online. All friendly vessels welcome." Hope. Gray repeated the station's name, a very human choice. "Speaking of human choices," Smith said with a grin, "wait until you see what we're planning for the station's recreation deck. We're introducing something called pizza to the Alliance." Their conversation was interrupted by a new alert. Long-range sensors had detected an unknown ship approaching Alliance space. But this time, there was no fear on the bridge. The Peace Seeker's crew moved with confident efficiency, their training evident in every motion. "Unknown vessel identified," Reed announced. "It's a trading ship from the Outer Rim. They're requesting permission to establish diplomatic and commercial relations with the species that defeated the pirate fleet." Gray felt his scales shift to a proud purple. A month ago, such a situation would have caused panic. Now it was just another opportunity. He looked at the mixed crew of humans and Alliance species working together on his bridge, and knew the galaxy was changing for the better. "Send them our standard greeting package," Gray ordered, "and inform them they're about to enter the protected space of the Human Alliance Coalition. Let them know that both our peoples welcome peaceful contact, but we're more than ready to handle anything else." As the trading ship approached, Gray watched human and Alliance crew members working side by side, each making up for the other's weaknesses, each learning from the other's strengths. The warning that had started this adventure, Red Alert, human warship sighted, had become a cause for celebration rather than fear. The galaxy was no longer the same, and that was exactly what it needed.